everyone, welcome back to another Pareto Learners video, and we are almost here for the weekend, so I've decided to do something a little bit different. I'm a movie buff. I've got to admit that one of the things that I thoroughly enjoy during the weekends is to watch wonderful movies, and oftentimes I wonder if we can use a little bit of data science, a little bit of Python, a little bit of magic to figure out which movies we should watch. It's not often an easy task because there are so many interesting movies out there, so today we will do something a little bit different than usual, where we've made decision trees, we've seen linear regressions, we've done all of this good stuff. But now imagine, as a weekend project, we are interested in finding out what good movies there are and how we could make a Python script that immediately allows us to get the IMDb information of scores for a given data set that we have available and make a perfect selection to our favorite movies to watch. There's an interesting list called 1000 movies to watch before I die, and I think that this list is great because it gives us sort of an updated idea which movies we should watch. So today we will be playing around with this list. We will try to get it over in a way that we do some data cleaning and figure out what data we can use. We're going to import it to Python, and we will use a API which allows us to get the data into Python and therefore develop a script that enables us to create a score for the movies we would like to watch. But not only that, we will also create a small loader so that when we are waiting that the IMDb scores gets all the data ready, we can basically see at what point we are, and we're not spending unnecessary time in figuring out how long it's still going to take to load, which is always a bit of a pain to do, and gosh, I hate waiting. And actually the problem with Python is you do not really know when we're waiting for a certain result, so I think that this loader integration is actually good. And we'll play a little bit of Tkinter, which allows us to create sort of a small interface, if you wish, to load the data. So dabble a little bit with interfaces and use APIs and use Tkinter to create a seemingly simple loader and finally get that information over in a way that it becomes available for us. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this Pareto lesson and it finds it useful. So first thing we do is we're going to find on Google the 1000 movies list. You can use pretty much any list you want. And from this list, we'll select the first couple of rows, and we just go drag it over with Shift. I'm a Mac user, so you drag it over to the last one and just copy this. And we just go to Google Sheets. And once we've copied, we can, with Google Sheets, very seamlessly and nicely paste it over here. So we paste the entire list, which is great. So it helps us a bit with formatting as well when we just paste the list over. And once we've pasted the list over, we'll put an insert and we'll add an ID. Further to that, we'll add a title. And next to the title, we will add the year, but we'll take it over to Excel, to CSV first. So let's export this to a CSV file. Done. And when we've exported a CSV file, we can open it in Excel. And once we're open with Excel, we can go on and do some additional data pre-processing, if you wish. That usually are the things that we have to handle before getting everything sorted out. So to do data handling, we'll just put 1, 2, 3, and we'll add the IDs by selecting over there. And our first thing is to actually get the years. So if we have the years of the movie, we don't want to have this as a separate field, right? So we can use the command write, and let's give a given number of fields that we want to use. So let's try that. And so we select a cell 5, and let's put 6. So we now have the year under parentheses. That's easy. So we've got the parentheses set up, and we've got the years. So we are going to remove the parentheses later on. And once we've actually done this, we can now just, I'll just paste it over here and get the values. Let's remove that. I usually like to use values when I'm using some data pre-processing, so there's no funky equations or whatever related. And I just cleared it with a replace, and I've replaced there. So I've now got my year set up. And I'm going to revise the title in a way that I actually can use it efficiently so that I don't have the names next to it. For example, Le Voyage dans la Lune. I don't require that because IMDb is likely going to find only the English title, and you see that there are many different cases where this happens. So, for example, das Kabinett der Dr. Caligari. And to do that, I'm going to do a little function here, which I'm going to type over. So I'm going to use the find function, find the cell number and the values that I have in a year, find it between the left, and find between the parentheses again. So I'm going to have the parentheses into account, and then go to the cell called B2 and substitute that. So it's an if function nested with a find, and if it's number, then it's going to help me to actually define it in such a way that I can hopefully get the only the title without the parentheses. And there you go. It worked out fine. So now I can go to my list and just double click on the corner there, and now I've got my titles without the foreign language title reference. So I'm just going to copy paste it as values here. I can delete this one, and I'm all set. Now I've got my data all set. I've got the titles there for all my movies, and I've got my year, and I've got an ID field, and that can take me now to our Visual Studio. And I'll just get right started with Visual Studio. And in Visual Studio, the first thing that I'm interested in doing really is to start importing the requests. Oops, I'm just going to put that in another line, of course. So import Pandas as PD from tqdm import tqdm. So this tqdm allows me to create the loader that I mentioned before and import tkinter as tk. From tkinter, I am going to import the file dialog, which allows us to have a file dialog easily set in place. And I'm going to add, most important of all, my API that allows me actually to do this stuff. To get the API, that's a different process, and we'll see it right here. Go to the address here that I've added. I'll add a little link about that, and just fill out the form here. And this will give you the OMDb API. And the OMDb API, once you've done that, allows you to get 1,000 data points per day of IMDb information. So we're going to play with scores now, but later on we can play with other things. So once we've got this, we are now ready to go. And obviously you put here your API key. And we're going to define a function, define get movie data. And we're going to use the API key for that, which you have to fill out, and the movie title. And that function, get movie data, first thing that it's got to do is send a get request to the OMDB API. Let's add this as here as a node. So let's call it as response equal to requests.get f. And here is the tricky part, so that took me a little bit of Googling to see how it was done. So the API is called by the URL, so the omdbapi.com, and here we add curly brackets, the movie title that we want to request on, and consider the API key that we have added right in the beginning. Remember to use your API key. So if you don't have the API key filled out, it's not going to really work. Then we have a data request, so data equals to response.json. And then we can now check if IMDb rating for that given movie that we're looking for exists. So to do that, we have to consider that if IMDb rating, let me just spell this out correctly, IMDb rating not in data, and we've defined data as a response from JSON before, we want to return NA. And this will return a and not available NA into our Excel spreadsheet. if the IMDb score doesn't exist. The second step that we want to do, still part of the same function, is to extract the rating from the response. So IMDb score will be equal to data, and in that data we will try to find the IMDb rating, so that is when the IMDb score is found, and return IMDb score. Pretty easy, and this allowed us to define this function, and now we can create a small little dabble of an interface, really, but hopefully that's going to be useful for later on when we start learning and playing around with different interfaces. So we're going to say root equals to tk.tk parenthesis root withdraw. So that will allow us to close and remove the the user interface and create a small file dialog. So this allows us then to select a CSV file. We've defined the Tkinter library gives us that interface. And we will now use a given list, which is basically the list that we've created before, to load up the movies. So we're going to do CSV file path equal to file dialog, and we're going to ask to open a file name, and we call it file types equal to CSV files, and we will be searching for all CSV files. So once we've done that, we are pretty much good to go with the loading component and loading bit of it. And we want to ask the user to enter name of a column where we have our movie titles. And the most straightforward way to do that is, instead of putting it part of the Tkinter, which we could actually add as within our graphic user interface, but let's use just the terminal to give us the prompt. So title column name input, please enter the name of the field of movie titles. In this case, the title the field is going to be called title in our CSV file that we created before. So now we can load the data from the selected CSV file. Data is going to be equal to pd.read CSV, which allows us to actually load this, and we're going to use the file path that we've created before within the file dialog. And now we are able to extract the movie titles from this and define it with our function. So movies equal to data title title column name and to list. So we have now defined and extracted the movie titles, and we can now get within that the IMDb scores for each movie. So we'll call this IMDb underscore scores equal to get movie data API key and movie title. And we can now create a for function here. So for movie, I just think the best way to do that would be to for movie. Let me just see here. I have these smart, so I could do a for function here. For movie underscore title in tqdm movies, fetching IMDb, so that my loader is connected to all of this and actually get movie titles, and the score is being fetched. Okay, so now we can add the scores to the data frame that we've created. Data is going to be IMDb underscore scores equal to IMDb underscore scores. And this will allow us to have a field within our data frame called IMDb scores underscore scores. Okay. Now we want to save this, the data frame, into the same CSV that we created before, so that when we save it, data to CSV, we can actually have it in the same file, which I think is more efficient. So let's load it. So like here, we can now open up the file CSV, and let's see the name that it has. Title. Okay, awesome. Let's please enter the name of the title. Where the titles are is title. Okay, so now it's going to load. It's going to take a bit longer for you. I'm just making it faster here, and I'm just making it in a way that it comes out quicker. So now we've got it. We can open it up in CSV or in Excel spreadsheet, and here you are. You've got yourself a nice score of your, or is by largest and smallest, of your movies. Notice that it can only do that for 1,000 fields per day, I think. So we can now hide this and, well, do the rest another day, I suppose. And here we have it. We have all our movies and IMDb scores and years organized. And that's the beginning of actually doing something interesting with the data set. And I know which movie I'm going to watch today. Thanks very much for watching.